How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another Raid Shadow Legends video here on their channel. And today, we're going to be breaking down the ultimate champions to take down your mirrored clones in Astranyx The Dark Fae. Now, we're not just going to be speaking about traditional damage dealers because, let's be real, there's so many champions that have the capability to wipe them out, right? But which of these champions can really play a role against the boss itself once those clones are taken to the ground? Because we still need some turn meter manipulation or some decreased speed to follow up afterwards. So that's what this list is all about today. But first and foremost, I hope you guys have had an amazing weekend. And let me know in the comment section below, what kind of teams do you run to take down this boss? Because for one, it might help other viewers out watching today's video, which is always cool. But secondly, I just want to see what kind of teams you guys are rocking. I'm very interested because it's very flexible with the kind of champions that can come into these teams, right? So we don't have to watch the rest of this run, but I was using the chicken and he significantly got me my best time here at 1 minute and 1 second. So still playing a little bit with that one. So I guess without further ado, let's head into the first champion that makes this list today. So the first one is going to be FAE from the Dwarves faction. Now, this is someone that I was underestimating for a very long time. And what does it come down to? Well, with her Boon Chant passive, if this champion has 2 or fewer buffs at the start of the turn, will place a 50% increased attack and also a 30% increased crit damage buff on this champion for 1 turn. Now, why this is very important, because once you come up against the boss, the mirror copies come down. She can then amplify the value of her damage. You lead into this AoE attack with the Righteous Evocation, and boom, you can annihilate them. And then following on from that with the Crushing Eternity, she can have a 100% chance once booked of fully depleting the target's turn meter. Now, of course, you're going to be pairing it up amongst other turn meter manipulators as well, so it's a nice backup to keep that boss from taking a turn. This is a really cool combination of skills, right, and doesn't require other champions to set her up, so I'm a huge fan of FAE for any players out there progressing in the Dark Fae. She also has a destroying of max HP on that A1, could have some Scarab use, but we're only speaking about the Dark Fae today. Now, next up, we have got Herndig, another dwarf, making it into the list, and he was one that I didn't go for the fusion. However, I did pull him and I did try him out, and what a champion. I'm pretty sure many of you guys can agree that he is top tier for this. Now, it's the combination of skills between the A1 with the Lethal Lust, which attacks one enemy and will grant an extra turn and decreases the cooldown of the Stasis Strike, which is actually his full depletion of turn meter, by 2 turns if this attack kills an enemy. So what you could do is, you could lead into this one, grant the extra turn, and then use the AoE as a first priority to wipe out those clones. Following on from that, you know that you've got the cooldown available because of you killing the enemy of this one to then fully deplete the target's turn meter with a weaken as well. So let's just say you've got a Royal Guard in your team who brings that decreased defense. You've now got both of your debuffs covered, turn meter manipulation and killing your mirrored clones, and a decreased accuracy and decreased defense on top. Why not? I forgot about that. But this could alleviate the amount of debuffs coming your way as well, right? Because they can place True Fears and Leech debuffs, and mitigating that as much as possible can definitely play to your advantage. So, yeah, huge fan of Herndig, definitely makes the list. Now, this next one might surprise you, and I'd also be surprised if anyone has this champion, because I definitely don't. And it's going to be Georgia the Breaker, infamous for being a top-tier arena nuker. Now, what does he bring for Dark Fae? Well, with the March of Tin, he attacks all enemies and decreases the turn meters of all targets by 30%, and this effect cannot be resisted. Now, why this is very powerful is because, let's just say you don't want to build accuracy on a turn meter manipulator and you just want raw damage, because you're using him in arena, right? You could just go through, nuke, do a bit of turn meter reductions, and follow him with your other champions afterwards. But on top of that, you are going to be dealing some nice damage against the boss as well, with a chance of repeating the attack. So it's not as impactful as the other options in terms of control, but he does bring in the fundamentals that we need to take them down. So the next one that we're going to be leading into is from the Orcs faction, and is a Grohawk the Bloodied. Also very underrated in this game. I think he's one of the best for the Dark Fae. In the entire game, by the way. And what does it come down to? Well, with this Unbound Anger, he attacks all enemies, and each critical hit will fill this champion's turn meter by 20%. Now, why this is so impactful is, let's just say you create all of your mirror copies and the boss itself, you then get 100% turn meter fill, whilst killing them by the way. You then lead into the Lord of War, you steal that target's turn meter, and then you apply a weaken debuff as well, if it's critical. And then you lead into the decreased speed as well, so it's the perfect 1, 2, 3 combination of skills to annihilate that boss. So for anyone who's been sleeping on Growhawk and you're struggling with the Dark Fae, look no further. He is a top tier champion, guys, especially for that area. Like, maybe a little bit lackluster elsewhere, to be fair. Could have some value in the Finite as well. But primarily, Dark Fae, very, very good. And I used him in my main 120 team for a solid 3 to 4 months, sometime last year. So next one here, we're actually going into the Undead Hordes, and it's going to be a Void Legendary once again. And it's Vlad the Nightborn, who was a previous fusion over Halloween. I believe it was in 2022, right? But looks pretty cool, recently had a buff as well, and what does he bring to the table? Well, he does have an AoE with a leech, allowing you to heal by the damage inflicted. And it's one of the reasons we use champions such as Deacon Armstrong against the boss, right? Let's just say you don't have full control and you've got semi-control. This is a perfect debuff to have active to just recoup your health. Now, he does have a chance of stealing the turn meter from specific factions if you are bringing those in, but also has a 100% chance of decreasing the turn meter by 50% instead against targets not from those factions. And who's not from those factions? Astranyx The Dark Fae. So a 50% turn meter drop is phenomenal, whilst wiping out your mirror copies. We also have a decreased defense and a perfect veil. Now, you may be thinking, do we need perfect veil? Well, it actually could determine what the boss is doing, and what do I mean by that? So let's just say you've killed your mirror copies, the boss takes another turn and banishes one of your champions. Well, it's worth noting that it's not randomized who she selects. It's actually the champion on your team with the highest attack, and of course, if you're building Vlad to wipe out your mirrored copies, he's 9 times out of 10 gonna be the target, right? But that perfect veil can actually hide him from the situation and deter that stealing to the lead position champion. Let's just say that's an allure, hypothetically. So you could maybe put your slowest champion in that lead position, utilize the perfect veil, and then just gives you more of a time to take out that extra banished champion. So perfect veil actually has some use against this boss. However, he also has a decreased defense and an A1 to heal himself by the damage inflicted. So yeah, a really top tier champion to bring into the boss for sure. Alright, so we're taking it OG classic now. We're going to the Ogrin Tribes faction. Can anybody guess who it is? 3, 2, 1. There's hands everywhere. We're going to a Big Un. One of my first ever legendary champions, actually, and I was so hyped when I pulled him back in the day. And what does it come down to here? Nothing crazy, to be fair, but he does do the job. So you open up here with the Molten Slag, which attacks all enemies 2 times. That's going to wipe out your mirror copies. It does hit relatively hard here, but also decreases the turn meter by 25%. Thumbs up. Whilst also a decreased speed debuff in the same ability. So when you talk about the ultimate opening phase, he's bringing in so many fundamentals to allow your other components to get out their skills, right? So huge fan of this one. Outside of that, he's got a bit of decreased accuracy and some extra hits, but it's primarily just for this one-hit wonder, and it does do wonders for your team, guys. So if you don't have better option, definitely look towards Big Un as somebody to open up that phase for you. So next up here, we're going to be going into the High Elves, and I don't think anybody's seen this one coming. He's like a secret weapon. Basilius Rowanus. Looks cool, reminds me of Legolas from Lord of the Rings. And what does he bring to the table? So opening with the Majesty, he attacks all enemies with a 100% chance of placing a stun debuff for 1 turn, and then will decrease each target's turn meter by 50% if the stun debuff is not placed. Now, once again, you cannot crowd control the boss with the stuns, right? So you're going to be guaranteeing yourself that turn meter drop, and then you lead in with the triple puncture and attack one enemy 3 times and ignoring 50% of the target's defense. So not only is he wiping out your clones, stunning them as a backup feature in case you get a reaction proc or something. You lead into this and you've actually got some good damage conditions as well to take down the boss. So I'm actually a huge fan of Basilius, somebody not to sleep on for sure. Alright, so let's go into some freebies. We've got a freebie on the list, of course. Can we remember where he's from? Nope. We can't remember where he's from. Is it Sacred Order? He's got to be Sacred. Wait, I was just in Sacred. No, he's a barbarian. We got this, guys. It's going to be Yakao. Now, Yakao is actually in my main finite hard 10 team. Phenomenal for taking out the waves, and I think that's worth reiterating as well. So many of these champions can just speed up your runs because they've got a great wave clearing potential. And if you set up your presets effectively, you know, you can time it to take out AoE 1, use another champion to take out AoE 2, and having all your cooldowns available for once you come up against the boss. So that's very important as well, because the last thing you want is not having the skills you want out on time, right? But with the Glaciate here, you basically place a freeze debuff on all enemies, strong form of crowd control, but also hits relatively hard here. And then this debuff cannot be resisted by targets with 75% or more turn meter. And then you would lead in with the Blizzard Rider, which places a decreased speed and also steals 100% of that target's turn meter and places an increased speed on this champion for 3 turns and ignores 50% of their defense if they're under a freeze, which unfortunately we can't do to the boss. But when you talk about that combination of skills, wiping out those mirror copies, then freezing them in case they don't die, decreased speed, stealing of turn meter, cycling turns, he's a great option, guys, for sure. And I actually tested him for the first time a few days ago, and he really surprised me. So huge shout out to your call here. Next up is actually a one-trick pony, Hegemon, a Void Legendary. And what it comes down to is the Fateful Arrival, because he always goes first each round. So you'd be opening up with the Crippling Cold, built in high damage, to then place a decrease attack, wipe out your mirrored copies before they even think about taking a turn. After that, it's basically just a decreased speed debuff, which is why he made the list. But you know, not having to worry about having to take a turn or getting outsped, you could just ramp as much attack into him. He could be slow as heck, he's still going to cut in, do that for your team, and then apply that decreased speed. So yeah, Hegemon, an OG classic, can definitely make an impact to your guys' accounts. So YST, do you have any epics on this list? Was it only Thylia? Well, no. We're going back to the Ogryn tribes. And it's going to be the one, the only, Siege Hulk. Look at him. He is ready to take down Astranyx The Dark Fae. Now, what does it come down to? It's not just a meme, guys, because he got an increased attack on himself. Remember when we spoke about Thylia? That self-amplification of stats makes you not have to rely on other champions to play that role for your team. And then we'll attack all enemies, so wiping out those mirrored clones, and then a 100% chance of placing a decreased defense debuff, which is vital for enhancing your damage. We then have the Siege Breaker, increased crit rate, increased crit damage, and also a decreased speed debuff, the big variation. And that allows you to lead in with the A1 for some turn meter manipulation as well, if they're under those conditions. So he was a phenomenal champion to come into the game and can definitely make an impact for players' accounts. Like, I think I did a video with only epics, without a lore. I believe I was using Skimfoss, Siege Hulk, Deacon Armstrong, Coldheart, and Royal Guards. And I did the hardest stage of the Doom Tower with that, so he definitely fits into those teams, even in the endgame, guys, for sure. Alright, so next up here, we're going into the Dark Elves, another OG for today's video. And it's going to be the Void Epic in Lua. Now, Lua has the capability to use Hail of Arrows to attack all enemies 3 times to wipe out those mirrored clones, but also attacks one enemy and decreases the target's turn meter by 100%. That's phenomenal, right? If you can cycle this in, let's just say, a reflex build, or you got reset somewhere, or refresh accessories, you can just cycle this, synergizes with your other champions, and an easy way to take out your clones and some of those waves as well. So maybe not the best champion in the game, but definitely can fulfill those roles. Alright, so this next option is a huge shout out to Saf, because I don't have it personally, and he said that Kellen the Shriek is a top tier option from the Sylvan Watchers. So, really cool. Let's break down why that can be. Well, he does do an attacking of all enemies and damage increases by 5% for each debuff on the target, which is cool. But attacks one enemy 2 times, the first it has a chance of decreasing the turn meter by 50%, and the second it has a chance of placing a decreased speed and that perfect veil once again to alleviate him getting banished. So, that's actually a really cool combination. How did I overlook Kellen the Shriek? Very powerful, like. And this one smacks as well, so you open with this, lead it with this, have some control, and also a weaken on that A1. Nice, okay. Well, for anyone that's been sleeping on Kellen like myself, this is a huge shout out. Huge, actually. A very top tier epic. Fan of that one. Next up here, we're going to be going into the Undead Hordes, and then we've got a Nephril. Someone that I've never been using. Where is he? Wait, is he undead? He has to be. That's Blood Gorged, his cousin. He's probably right in front of my face. There he is, Nephro, the bat himself. And he's actually got a really cool kit when I was breaking it down, because with the Ghastly Horrors, he attacks all enemies with a chance of placing a stun debuff on all enemies for 1 turn. Will then place a 30% decreased speed debuff if the target is not under a stun. So similar to the Basilius Rowanus, right? And that's a very cool synergy. I like it. You can take out your mirrored copies, stun them up, decrease speed in the same phasing. You then have a decreasing of turn meter by 75% on a 4-turn cooldown once booked, and then a bit of poisons as well, which doesn't have incredible value. But he definitely does bring some rolls for your team, and if you can cycle this after taking them out, that's a nice form of control, for sure. Alright then, so that was my official list for the best clone destroyers in 2024 when we speak about Astranyx The Dark Fae. And I would love to hear in the comment section below if you feel like someone else should have made the list today. So I'll keep my eyes peeled for some underrated options. And it's worth reiterating, like I mentioned at the start of the video, pretty much any nukers in this game with good damage potential can wipe out the clones. But for me, the true value of the champions we spoke about is what are they doing to the boss afterwards, because that's so important, right? Do they have decreased speed? Do they have turn meter manipulation? Because not every player has the luxury of the best turn meter drop champions in the game, such as Lysandra or Law or whoever that may be. So the more that you can fit into a squad, the better it's going to be. But I do want to break down some different strategies when we speak about it. Let's just go through this boss once and break it down. So I've actually brought the chicken in here. He's actually very good for this boss. He sped up my run significantly. Could have made the list, but he doesn't do crazy turn meter stuff. It's just about clones and then dealing raw damage. So I didn't squeeze him in. Didn't want to be biased. But he does reset his own cooldowns and stuff, and lets you take out the waves as well in the process. So once you come up against the boss, he does all the mirrored copies. They've all got the same stats as are the champions that we've built and all of that good stuff. Now, what I used to do was maybe open with a Law, place a bit of a sleep and a drop defense, and then I would lead into the Newt and then lead into the Royal Guard. And before you know it, the combination of attacks actually kills your clones without relying on a full clone nuker, if that makes sense. So that's definitely viable if you've got full control. Another option is bringing in stuns or freezes with like the Yakal I mentioned to make sure that the copies don't take a turn. So, and then that way you can slowly but surely take them out. But let me just show you how my one's working. So I'd go like this. You'd go in with the weaken. And then you could do like an AoE decrease defense or something. I'm actually not going to do the AoE this time. And then you'd go like this. Take them out. And then let's just say you had a cold heart or something. They could have the potential to wipe out the rest, right? So that's what I meant about the combination of attacks. But just to show you the speedrun, actually. I'm excited for this one. Now I don't have to make a whole video on the team. Here we go. So we basically go boom, boom, boom. Open the decreased defense. Metamorph into the electronic chicken. Kapow. Let's go. Lead into wave 2. We kind of locked up all the presets, saving all of our cooldowns so we can place them at the right time. And that's where we're getting our full auto from. We're then going to lead against the boss. We're going to manipulate their turn meter. Fury of the King. A1 drop a bit of turn meter, take out the mirrored copies, which is what I was speaking about in this video, and there we go, full control. And we might have one turn where the boss will banish a champion. I believe in this case it may be a Law with the highest attack, because she's got very high star blessings. Let's see, will the boss take a turn? I doubt it. But I was so close, I was like just under, or just over 1 minute. I was like, can I get it under 60 seconds? I just couldn't pull it out of the bag. Nice. Turn meter reduction. And this is what it's all about, guys. It's about once you kill those clones, everything becomes a lot more easier, right? Because it's very similar to the FAE Knight. So instead of taking down a shield counter, you take down the clones instead, and then you do full turn meter control of the boss and make sure they never take a turn. And bringing in max HPs is going to be very powerful as well. But yeah, guys, on that note, that is going to be all for today's video. If you did find it useful, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. I will card above maybe another option for a full in-depth Astranyx The Dark Fae guide for players trying to understand the mechanics. And also maybe towards the end, I'll list one with some of the best champions for like single target turn meter manipulation, or just some of the best damage dealers in the game for this boss. Have an amazing rest of your day, and I'll see you in a video soon. Peace.